We're looking ahead to the offseason, the limitations the Celtics face. What did they do with Sam Hauser? What did they do with Derrick White? It's all with guest Keith Smith right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster Brand, it's holiday season. Drop Drew in the mix. And 3 from KP, no, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Zeus, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in Locked On NASA. Karalis on the breakdown. Clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how we started, raising banners, how we finish. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I got you covered every Monday through Friday with a free, fresh podcast that drops directly to your device when you subscribe. You can watch the show on YouTube. You can get into the comments section and let me know what you're thinking about what I'm saying, about what the Celtics are doing, all right there. If you're new to the show, I am John Karalis. I used to play a long time ago. Now I'm covering the Celtics as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I'm also the author of Built Different. You can get the commemorative edition celebrating the Celtics championship run at triumphbooks.com/CelticsWin. triumphbooks.com/CelticsWin. Use the code Celtics24 for a 25% discount. All right. Today's show was recorded before the Brooklyn Nets made the trade with the New York Knicks, sending Mikal Bridges over to New York. My reaction, I did a quick reaction on YouTube Shorts. It's also on Boston Sports Journal. But quickly, it does make them better. It puts them in the top 3 in the East. There are other moves to make. It looks like they're going to retain OG Anunoby, so they're going to be one of Boston's main competition. But there are still holes in that lineup, but it's going to make it tougher. So we'll get into that a little bit more later on as we get through the offseason. But I have a reaction on Boston Sports Journal. Not much more to react. The Celtics are still a better team, but it does make them tougher. We'll see what other moves they make moving forward. This show was also recorded before the draft, and so I don't expect them to do anything in the first round. We'll see if I look stupid after the draft is over. The draft will be covered on tomorrow's show. After the second round is over, Brad Stevens is talking at like 6:30 after the draft is over. So I will have a full reaction podcast after that. If there is a full reaction to be had, if they just trade down for 2 second rounders, we'll cover it, whatever. So that's going to be tomorrow's show. Here now, today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Got to get that in here. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Now, here's my conversation with Keith Smith. Keith Smith, Spotrac, NBA front office show, the guy to help us get, I still got confetti in my pockets. And we're turning around and it's like, hey, by the way, here's the NBA draft and people are making trades. And by the way, free agency is right around the corner. You're like, what the hell? Brad Stevens probably still hasn't slept off the 2 high noons that he had in the celebration. So, Keith, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. It was incredible run this year. It was just so much fun following this team all year. I was explaining to someone who's only sort of a fan, like they tuned in during the playoff run and all that, and they're like, "Oh, you guys must have been a crazy year." And I was like, honestly, this was one of the more low stress years I've had. And now partially I stepped away from covering the team day to day, so I didn't have to do all of that stuff, but I was like, I still was there, or still following every game. And I was like, I just had a lot of fun, and it was really fun leaning into being a fan again that way.
Yeah.
That I could really kind of throw myself into it. And, maybe that was the key. Maybe I was the jinx over the last several years and I just needed to get out of doing it day to day. And now they're free and clear to rip off, 7, 8, 9 titles in a row or something.
Like that. Yeah. I didn't want to say the whole jinx thing. I know that I normally say jinxes aren't real. It's because I didn't want to make you feel bad.
No, I appreciate that.
But now that this is out, the cat's out of the bag, I can say the jinxes are in fact real, and you are one of them. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah, for real. Yeah, no, I'm with you. People were like, "Don't jinx stuff," and I'm like, "That's not a real." Trust me, if I could control the world that way, I'd use that power for good, if for nothing else, for myself. Like
Right.
I'd be, people would never hear from me again. I'd
Right.
disappear off somewhere and watch games all by myself in my private island on the top of a mountain or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if I could influence the outcome of sporting events, I mean, I just got to open up my FanDuel app and
Yeah,
I
there it
can
is.
really make some money off of this stuff.
Right.
Anyway,
No. Anyway,
so
yeah.
off
Yeah, but
season.
I will say this though, you're absolutely right. It feels like we're drinking from a fire hose here because it's been like nonstop party, and now it's like, hey, off season's here, and it's all here right now in this period of days. I was thinking about it the other day. The finals, had it gone to a game 7, would have just ended on Sunday. Would have just ended Sunday, and it would have been like, how would we have even remotely turned around and been prepared for anything? So I am thankful that it wrapped up in 5 and was able to get a jump on some of the other stuff. But
Yeah.
it is unbelievable that it's like options and guarantees, and then the draft is going to hit, and then we're going to barely be done with this 2-day draft. We're going to have 1 day in between that and free agency opening. Like, it's absolutely wild.
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit crazy. I mean, look, Brad Stevens and his staff, this is their jobs. So while the playoffs are going on, they are doing all of this stuff. They're working players out and they are preparing. But let's just put this out there. I joked on one of my podcasts earlier this week that I would be a horrible, horrible GM. But maybe this year I could do it because there's nothing to do. They can't do a damn thing. They can't make trades. They can't sign free agents. They can't do anything. I'm just like, I can do nothing. I can sit there and do nothing for the Celtics. I've done a whole lot of nothing for them for my entire life. So I could go in there and officially do nothing for them. They are a second apron team. No doubt about it. No getting down below it. No nothing. They are gonna be a second apron team. So please explain now what you can and can't do as a second apron team.
Sure. Yeah, it is the list of things you can't do is pretty long, but I'll keep it fairly simple for folks. What you can do, you can re-sign your own free agents using whatever bird rights, non-bird rights, early bird rights you have for them. You can extend your own players. That's going to be a big part of this summer for the Celtics.
Mhm.
You can sign players to minimum contracts, and you can sign your own draft picks. So those are the easy things that you can do there. If you want to make trades, you're limited in how you make those trades. Those trades need to be made 1-for-1 trades. You cannot do a 2-for-1 trade. So they wouldn't do it. But if they wanted to combine Al Horford and Derrick White together and go get a $30 million player, they can't do that. Anyway, which the city would riot if they even tried.
Right.
But they can't do that
speaking
anyway.
in hypotheticals here.
Exactly. Yeah. I just use them because them two together is a nice round, like 30 million.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can't do that. You also can't do any kind of trade where you trade a player out and you take back more money. So in the case of a guy like Jaden Springer makes about $4 million or so, you can't trade him and take back a guy who makes like $7 million, which used to be kind of a thing you could do. You can't do that any longer. You also can't use traded player exceptions that were created in the prior season. So like I believe they still have a Grant Williams TPE. That's out the window, can no longer be used for the team because that goes away as a second apron team. So you're really, really limited in the things that you can do. So I've been referring to, when I'm asked about this offseason for the Celtics, it's about retaining players long-term and some short-term, and it's about doing what you can to replenish the back end of the bench. The top 8 guys from the playoff rotation are all either under contract or under team control. So there's no real worries there. It's just about the deeper you get into the bench, which we could get into a little bit, I think may have a little bit more importance for the Celtics, especially right out of the gate next season.
Lots more to get to with Keith, including what do they do with Sam Hauser? What do they do with Derrick White? All of that stuff, the financial implications, it's all coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. It is the place to go for all of your last-minute tickets. MLB games, Boston Red Sox games if you're in town, other cities if you're from out of town. whatever you want. But not just that, it's also theater, comedy shows, whatever is in a venue that sells tickets online. It's going to be probably found on the Gametime app. Download that Gametime app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You'll get 20% off your $20 off your first purchase. You're also going to get great last minute deals where you save up to 60% off buying for last minute tickets there. Flash deals, exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of these events. Zone deals where you select the section. Gametime picks the seats for you. You can toggle all-in pricing, so when you check out, there's no surprise fees. You even get seat views, panoramic view, so you know what you're going to be looking at when you pick that seat. Is that going to be a view that you're good with? You get 110% of the difference with their lowest price guarantee if you find same ticket somewhere else for less. So go check it out. You get 110% of the difference credited to you. So go check it out. Download the Gametime app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKED, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. That's free. All the draft coverage, all the big stories, all the big sports stories, and none of the fake arguing that you find that's so annoying everywhere else. Go check that out. Now, more of our conversation with Keith Smith. Just to be clear, when we say can't take back any more money than you send out, it used to be like, well, you can get within, this. They would give you $100,000 to play with, at least something. But if the guy makes a penny more than what the player you're sending, you cannot make that trade.
Correct.
You cannot, which is, I heard guys talking about, I think Zach Lowe was talking to Bobby Marks about potential Jimmy Butler trade or potential Paul George trade. And it's like, oh no, he makes $30,000 more. So you can't do that. Like, that is an incredibly fine detail that is important in all of this. But they can make a 1-for-2 trade. They can't do 2-for-1,
Correct.
but they can do Derrick White for two $10 million players.
Yes.
If they were so inclined, right? Or let's say Drew Holiday was just like, yeah, this was nice, I'm out, or whatever. They could. So there is somewhere to go, and it may not matter this season because this season's basically a run it back season. Everybody's still running high. We're talking about hypotheticals, but 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if they're still operating above the second apron, that's a whole other story. There's so many other things. There's draft picks that get frozen. There's repeater taxes that go into account. We'll worry about that somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
This offseason, this is how it's going to have to be for you listening at home or in your car, wherever you're listening. It's going to be an offseason by offseason thing. Let's just focus on this summer. Next summer is next summer. They have very, very limited trades. They're not going to sign any free agents other than minimum guys. That's it. And they only have a few roster spots. So it really is back of bench kind of stuff. Now, the one thing that Brad Stevens has been, I think, a genius at is creating like a long-term, like this team is together for the next few years. And if look, you won, you run it back. You win again, run it back. Even if you lose, run it back. Let's just do it. We're 1 for 2. We're batting 500 here. Let's go. Let's go one more time. There are some questions. There are some things that Brad Stevens can actually do. And this is the part that I would not be good at. Sam Hauser is a question. So let's get into the Sam Hauser question.
Yeah, I love it.
He's making, what is he making? Like two and change.
Yeah, about 2.
So let's run through the Celtics options. Basically, there are 3 options that they can have. It's a team option, so they can just pick it up and say, yeah, we'll talk next summer. Number 2, they can negotiate an extension off of this, or they can say, let's talk new contract. We will decline the team option and we'll just come up with a new deal. I don't think just picking up the team option is and kicking it down the road is going to happen, because then he becomes an unrestricted free agent next year. And frankly, these role players are so important, and having a good one as a second apron team is so important. You kind of have to do what you can. Losing a guy like Sam Hauser can be devastating, just because there's just so little room for like getting somebody like that again. You've hit on them. So I don't think the pick up the team option and let's talk next summer thing happens. First, do you agree? And secondly, can you lay out what the contractual options are for extending off of pick up the team option or wipe out the team option and come up with a new deal?
Yeah, first, I completely agree with you. There's no reason to put yourself at that kind of risk because you're going to run into either you're going to end up paying him a lot more, even though you don't have real match rights. I do think there's a world where Sam Hauser would say, hey, I love it here. I play a big role here, but Team X wants to give me $20 million per season to be their designated shooter. What do you think? Can you do 20? Can you do 25? Like where do we want to go?
Can I interject?
Sure.
Just because I think it's an important point to say that because of the minimum contract, because of the salary minimums now, the salary cap minimums, the roster minimums, teams are obligated to spend a certain amount of money.
Correct.
A Bruce Brown 2-year, $40 million. We're going to throw our money at somebody. Let's just throw short money, but short contract, big money at a guy like Hauser. We have him. If it doesn't work out, we have a big contract that's tradable. That's not out of the question. And I think that plays into the calculus here.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. Like, so a team this summer, if this team exists, and there always will be, because there will always be a team like the Pistons this summer, if $60 million to spend, they may say, hey, you want to come here for a year on a big money deal? We're overpaying you a little bit. Come on in. And then we'll figure it out from there. So that is certainly a possibility that's how that would play out. So for that reason, I think the Celtics will do everything they can to avoid that. So that really comes down to, do you decline his option, make him a restricted free agent this summer, which allows you to fully control the process. Teams can come in and offer him whatever they can up to his max if they wanted to. And then the Celtics would obviously have to make a decision there. Do they want to match or not? Or the Celtics can just, part of the new rules here is you can negotiate with your own free agents. They could try to wipe that out here in the next 6 days or so before free agency opens, right? And before free agency opens up at the beginning part of next week, you could get into all that. So there's that option. The other option would be you pick up the team option now, and then you extend him. Now, it's funny. A lot of people have said, yeah, but I know they changed the extension rules, but he only makes $2.1 million. So that's not enough. Like that, even at 140%, like that's a minor bump. There's a little caveat there that's a little bit different for guys like Sam Hauser's case. I like to call this the Dinwiddie extension. Other people call it the Richardson extension, where what you can do is you can offer the player either 140%, and this is obviously up to 140% of their prior salary up to their max, or you could offer them, if they're below the league's average salary, you can offer them 140% of the league's average salary. So in Sam Hauser's case, what the Celtics could do is they could offer him an extension that goes up to about $80 million over 4 years. So they would have him next year at $2.1 million. Then in the 25-26 season, his extension would kick in at $17 million and change is where that would kick in at. The average salary, it's not the exact same number as the non-taxpayer mid-level, but it's really close. Mm-hmm. So if anybody's really like, I need to do some quick back of the napkin math, you just use the projected non-taxpayer mid-level because it's going to come in a few thousand or so within that range. So that's a way for Boston to keep the tax bill from getting further out of control this summer than adding it. Now, the other option, like we said, is you make them restricted. And sometimes what we see teams do is the player in the team they might be able to say, hey, so I know we can give you 17 million if we go that extension route next year, but this year, what if you came back and we're not going to go to 17, so we're going to pay a year earlier than we need to. What if we did 12 million as a starting salary or something like that? And that's where they could go. And that's probably even a little high. It might be more like, what about 8 or 10 million for Sam Hauser or something like that? That's part of what you do. Sometimes if you agree to go the decline route, make him restricted free agent, pay the guy now, the player will sometimes give a little bit of a hometown discount because they're getting paid a lot more money a year earlier than they could have otherwise from the team.
Which makes sense, right? If I'm Sam Hauser, I'm sitting there making like, a little more than $2 million, and they're like, well, we'll come in, we'll give you 8 this year. You're like, oh damn, that's $8 million this year. You can wait and maybe, but like you can get that this year and you get your extension. Look, I don't know what the salary for Sam Hauser should be. I haven't done the comps. I haven't really spent much time on that stuff. This is good. Can you imagine if this had gone Game 7? Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Right. Yeah. I will tell you, I have run some of the comps for guys like him. Obviously, the number one comp that kind of comes to mind for people is Duncan Robinson. It's the designated white shooter, right? I mean, just call it what it is. That's what the guy is.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, I'm going to be honest about it. I think it is. I think Robinson was a little bit more established because he had started on the Heat teams before that. Hauser's never been a regular starter. So I think in this case with Hauser, what I think you come in is lower than the Robinson number. I also think Hauser knows I'm probably not going to be a starter on this team. So I think the comps come in. If you also look at a handful of other guys who are more designated shooter types, we're probably looking at something in that 8 to 10 million range. Feels fair for that. Now, he may look at it and say, man, I can get at least the mid-level, and that may be true. So maybe you have to go up to 12 to 13 if that really is where this pushes. But that's a discussion point, whether that's re-signing him right now this summer as restricted free agent or in extension conversations. Because like Miles McBride, for example, with the Knicks, did one of these average salary extensions, but only got like $4 million a year from the Knicks. So it doesn't have to be all the way to that 80 million number and the 20 million AAV. That can just be, you can negotiate whatever you feel like within that range is fair. So that's where it's going to be kind of Hauser versus the team on that a little bit.
More with Keith. We got to get into the Derrick White stuff. That's coming up next. So the good thing about Hauser, his agent Jason Glushon represents Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, and Al Horford. All of whom have had successful negotiations with Brad Stevens, and so the relationship there of getting a deal done is established, was well established. So I can see the kind of give and take, because it is a give for the Celtics to say, listen, we'll tear up we could do team option and extend. We could do that and make you make 2 and change, and that would save us on our tax bill by a ton. But we're willing to go deeper into the tax to keep this team together. But on your end, we'd like to, instead of, if you say, hey, the open market is 12, well, we're looking at, starting at 8 and giving you those raises. And maybe it's a shorter contract. Maybe it's a 3-year deal instead of 4-year or something like that. I don't know. Can they go 5 with him or no?
They can't go 5. They can do 4 would be the max that they could
4.
offer.
Okay. Yeah. So they can say 3 instead of 4. So, it's this year and then 2 more. And it kind of puts them in line with some of the other guys like a Holiday or a Porzingis or something like that. So it's kind of like all in the same kind of time frame. And it gets you a little bit more money now. And then in a couple of years, we can revisit and see where we are. And if another shooter comes along that's younger and somewhere along the way in the draft, someone kind of presents themselves and they say, hey, good luck. Thank you for the 3 championships. I'm just going to assume it's just 3. Congratulations and, good luck earning more money somewhere else. Go over to friggin' Golden State or go, wherever shooters go and go have fun. Like that could be something that they end up saying. So if I like that idea. I think 3 years starting at what's that? 8, let's say 8 to 10 million, that gets them into the 3-year. What would that end up being? Like 3 and like
3 like 28,
40?
330, somewhere in that range.
330. Yeah. Okay. So 330 and change sounds about right for I think considering his defense, his improved defense and all of that stuff, that works out for me. That is fine.
I agree. And I also think we've seen when they do have to go to him as a starter, they don't have any issue. They just plug him in and expect him to do his thing. They've never really batted an eye at doing that. It's not like it's happened a lot, but on occasion they've had to throw him in there as a starter and they just make sure he does his thing. I will say this for any Celtics fans, knowing how this front office has operated, especially since Brad Stevens has taken over, whatever happens before that decision deadline, which is the 29th, whatever happens before then, the Celtics and Sam Hauser will be in some form of agreement for how this is going to play out. Mm-hmm. So if they decline it, they've probably already had the conversation and they know where it's going. If they pick it up, they've probably already had the extension conversation and they know where this is going. So I would say nothing's going to happen where it's like, oh, well, we're going to make this decision and we'll just hope for the best. That's probably not going to be how that plays out. I think they've been very aggressive in extending their own players. And I think that'll come into play with Hauser as well, because I still think Brad Stevens, not in a bad way, but approaches the front office job a little bit with the mindset of a coach where I want continuity and assurances of I know what it is. This season was a little weird because the holiday thing popped when it popped, and thank God they jumped on it and didn't say, we got to let things play out, right? Because who knows? But thankfully they did it. But I think for the most part, it is a little bit more of I don't want to have open-ended questions across my roster, guys playing for contracts. I want to, if we can get guys signed, let's get guys signed and let's just move on and play ball.
Yeah, that makes sense. That brings us to Derrick White, which is another interesting kind of case. And he obviously supremely important to what the Celtics have done. And he has also a couple of options. One is just an extension this summer, which would be, I believe, 4 years, $126 million.
Yep.
Or he can wait. He can become a free agent and he can make more money. He can make up to, at that point, I think he can he make the 30% max at that point?
Yeah, he's got the years of service. Yep.
Yeah, he's got the years. So he can make up to 30% of the cap, which is probably a little too much for him. But, my question that I've kind of asked open-endedly, and I'll ask to you is it worth for him, and we're guessing at this point because we're not in his head, is it worth for him to get the extension now and say, look, I want the security versus, geez, I see that Drew Holiday money and I want a piece of that. I want that contract. And you don't get the Drew Holiday contract without becoming a free agent, which it's also like rolling the dice. And, we can try to get into his head and say, hey, he seems happy here. He loves it here. He loves playing for Joe. He seems content. He doesn't seem like a guy that's going to squeeze every last cent out of a team. But also, you've got union guys on this team, and you've got Al Horford, who has maximized every cent that he has gotten out of every contract, and he is in people's ear. And the business side is the business side. And I do not begrudge a player saying, hey, man, I only have until my mid-30s to make as much money as I'm going to make for my entire life. Not just my entire life, but my kids, Their kids, like, I want to set up generational wealth. So you might be like, well, you've already made this much money. What's $5 million? No one should ever ask the question, what's $5 million? Because the answer is, it's $5 million.
Yep.
And like, that means something to someone who's planning. You could put that 5 million in a fund somewhere and be like, that's my grandson's college. Boom, done, whatever. Like, because college is probably going to cost $5 million in like 30 years.
Probably.
So, but like, that stuff is all important. So I don't know. Give me your feelings here on where we're going here with a potential Derrick White contract.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of the factors. I think it's important. I feel like because Derrick White is still newer to Celtics fans, because it's only been 2.5 years that he's been here. He's 30 this summer. He turns 30 in the beginning part of July. So we're really looking at his next contract. To your point, that's kind of that's probably the last big one. So if he is in a spot where it is, hey, I think I can get 35, 40 million a year from a team, maybe not the full 30% of the cap max, but pretty close to that, he may want to say, I want to wait. And to be fair, the team could still be Boston. There's nothing that says because a guy goes into unrestricted free agency, a team can't re-sign him. Like, I think sometimes people think, oh, he's an unrestricted free agent. That's it. It's over. He's leaving town. And like that's not how it works. We've gotten so into extensions are the way things get done, but sometimes they're not. Now, to your point too, I could see Derrick White sitting there and saying, man, you could give me 126 million over 5 years or over a 4-year extension rather. That's 32 million and change a year. Done. Like, easy. Like, I don't even want to mess around. Let's just get this finished. Because he does seem like a guy who is pretty simple, like doesn't really want to create drama. I think he just wants to show up, play ball, be where he's happy. We obviously know his dad is a big influence on him. His dad loves him being a Celtic too. But I think his dad would also say, hey, if you feel like you can make 40 million a year, go do that too. I'll support you wherever you are. I was kind of laughing and I said, it's probably good for the Celtics that there's no chance in the next year the Denver Nuggets having cap space. Because I could see that being like, oh, I can go home and play. Like, I can finish it out back home in Colorado. That's kind of become home for me. That's not a thing. They won't have cap space, so that's not going to be a thing, thankfully. So just like I repeatedly say, everybody should hope they never put an expansion team in St. Louis, because I think Jayson Tatum would be like, thanks for the memories, Boston. I'm out of here, at some point. But it's So I think the Celtics are in a pretty good position. I would not be surprised at all if sometime in the next week or two, we got Derrick White and the Boston Celtics have agreed to a 5-year, 126 million max extension. And to your point, if he's like, I kind of want that Holiday money, it's really not that far off what Holiday just extended for on his new extension, because he's at about 32, 34 million a year. So you're kind of in that range there. So I wouldn't be shocked if that's how this goes down. But I get it if he's like, hey, let's just play out the year and see what's there for me next year. And then you do run the risk of, all right, well, if we don't win a championship again, is then his ownership like, do we really need to pay him $40 million a year too, along with Tatum, along with Brown, and 30 plus million for Holiday, and Porzingis is at 30? Because at some point, there will be a point where it's like, all right, this has gone too far. That's why I think you'd rather try to get it done now rather than wait a year. But we'll see. He owes it to himself to make whatever he thinks is the best decision for him, not ultimately, well, this is what's best for the Celtics, because Celtics are going to be super expensive no matter what. So just get your money one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I don't know. Maybe some of that sweet Sam Adams money is come in and make a different. And clearly, he's getting a new wardrobe out of it. So, like,
and a duck boat apparently. Cash for. So,
that's
right. We're joking about it, obviously, but that stuff does matter. Like, there's no guarantee. I mean, he is now a legend and beloved in Boston. And that was there before the championship. That's only like cemented it for all time.
Yeah.
But people love this guy. When that first Sam Adams commercial came out and I got it sent to me and then I tweeted it out, like the responses from people were like, "This is incredible."
Yeah.
They were so excited and thought it was so funny. And I think too, sometimes we have to remember too, he's raising a family here. Like that's important to him as well.
Mhm.
I think for him, it's like, hey, if I can, really kind of raise my family here, not have to uproot them and move everybody around, that matters. I think that was big for Drew Holiday when he said, I don't want to do this again. Like, I want to make this is where I want to finish it out. That's why he did his extension. I think Drew Holiday also knows, hey, maybe in year 4, maybe I am going to be traded somewhere else. By that point, I'll be in my later 30s, and I'll be a big money contract, and maybe they are doing other things. But I think those guys understand the business. But in the early years of a contract, I do think all that stuff does matter because you can make a lot more money. I mean, and I think just the smile, you've seen it up close, like the smile on his face at all these events, since they won the championship isn't great. You can tell Derrick White just loves being in Boston.
Can I tell you, like, Derrick White, I don't get to see much of practices, but I get to see post practice. Derrick White is having the most fun out of anybody. Him and the coaches, and they do trick shots after every game. He goes through his shooting and he goes through like the whole routine. And very obviously he works very hard, right? So we've seen the results. So you can talk about him taking trick shots at practice without it being like, oh, he should be working on.
Yeah, work on your jumper. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's good. Everything. He is having so much fun. It is. I think he really is like truly enjoying himself. So. I think obviously sticking around is very important. All right, let's quickly go the remaining free agents for the Celtics, which are Luke Cornett, Xavier Tillman, Svi Mikhailuk, and O'Shea Brissett. Now that he has turned down his team option, those are the only 4, right?
Yep.
Who do you?
And
think
you've got the two-way guys too. Davison and Peterson are also free agents this year.
Okay. Davison is not allowed to come back.
He can do one more year with the Celtics. You could do 3 years on a two-way. Okay. With the team, but he could only do one more year. I don't think that's how it will go. I think that by the time we get to that 3rd year, that's generally reserved for older players. Maybe the guys that came in at 23, 24 years old. I think for Davison, it's either going to be a roster spot or let me try my luck somewhere else. And I think Boston would probably say, hey, good luck to you. We, happy trails with that. Figuring it out.
I'm not sure about him coming back.
Yeah.
Of these other free agents, who do you expect back? Who do you think might go?
I think Brissett's gone. I think he opted out with the idea of I think he wants to play. I think he's probably looking at it as like, not that he can be Derrick Jones Jr., but I think he might be looking at, hey, he did a minimum, got a chance to play. It might be another minimum somewhere, but if I can play 20 minutes a night, I might be able to show, hey, I deserve a $7-8 million a year contract, maybe even the mid-level in that. So I think he's probably moving on. I kind of wonder with Cornett and Tillman, because we also skipped over Kada, who they have a team option on, but I assume they're going to pick that up.
I assume that they're going to pick that up. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I just think for him, we're somewhere between he's either the 3rd center or like the 4th or 5th center, depending on what else they do at the position. And I think for $2 million, that's well worth investing in him and still figuring out. He's showing more than enough to me that says, hey, for $2 million at the end of the bench, let's go. I'm good with that. Now, Cornett and Tillman, I think the Celtics want to go into next year with a minimum of 2 playable backup centers because Porzingis talked about it. I mean, I don't know when he's having this surgery after whatever this championship tour of throwing out first pitches and, who knows? I mean, but next I expect him to see him kicking field goals in Gillette Stadium.
Let me tell you something. But after watching Porzingis throw that first pitch, I was afraid that he hurt 5 other things.
Right. Well, that's like me throwing a Super Ball in my hand, right? Like it's so I can't even imagine how small a baseball is in his giant hand.
It's like throwing a marble.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think with for like him, he's going to have surgery. I mean, he said that. He said himself it's a few month recovery. So we're talking beginning of July, he has surgery. By the time he's really ready to go, that's training camp. We're already into training camp. I've been repeating this ad nauseum because I don't know how many people fully realize the Celtics have the shortest offseason of any team in the league because they played in the finals and they start training camp earlier than anybody else because them and the Nuggets go to Dubai next year for the preseason. So they open up earlier.
Right.
Yeah, so they're going to open up it's anywhere from 4 days to a week earlier than everybody else. On top of that, you've got Tatum and Holiday, maybe Derrick White going and playing in the Olympics. So I think they're going to, if we just stick with the center position, though, they aggressively managed Horford all year long. That will continue. Porzingis, I think we're coming out of the gate fairly conservatively with him as well. So you've got two guys you're trying to manage through and make sure they're there. I think you want a minimum of two very playable centers that you can plug in at any given time, because you may have an early season back-to-back and Porzingis may not be ready to go in those. And we know Horford won't play in both ends. So you're going to want to have guys. I don't know that both Kornet and Tillman stick, because that could start to be a little bit of overkill. If they re-sign both of them, that could tell us a little bit that they're Kata, we like him, but maybe not ready for 20 minutes on a semi-regular basis. So let's run it back with those two guys. So I think we're probably down to Kornet or Tillman comes back. Tillman may have slightly bigger offers because there were teams that liked him and were kind of upset that Boston kind of stole him at the trade deadline. So I know you could see a team say, hey, we've got $7 million of our mid-level. We want to go to Xavier Tillman. And the Celtics may look at that and say, that's a little bit much for a guy who's our third center. Now, Kornet, they may look at and say, let's give him $5-6 million because he's been here. We know we can trust him. He's the guy Joe Mazzulla went to every time he needed him. And I think for them is, if we give him $6 million, that's $6 million a tradable salary we might be able to use at the trade deadline next year. If we feel good, Horford, Porzingis are ready to go. Maybe Kata's ready. Maybe they draft a big, who knows? But we could maybe move on it that way. So I think you might see him on a slightly upgraded salary kind of coming in. But I think it's one of those two guys. Mikhailuk, who knows? I imagine the team's like, you want to come back for the minimum? We're happy to talk about it. He had big offers to go overseas last year, turned it down because he wanted to stay in the NBA. I assume he probably wants to stay in the NBA. But like Brissett, he might be like, is there somewhere I can play? Like, and actually maybe carve out a rotation role as I can be somebody's designated shooter. Let me get into that role for a team. So I kind of think we probably see those go. And I think because they have a first round pick, unless Stevens continues to use the Belichick playbook and do whatever he does there, I think we could see that turn into, all right, we not in a bad way, but kind of don't want those guys because we gotta get draft picks in here. We want to sign another veteran player that maybe a ring catcher that fills more of a role if we need them, something like that. Ring chaser, I should say. Maybe it'll be a ring catcher. We'll be positive, but at least a ring chaser. Let's try to go that direction. So I think the end of the bench is very much in flux, and there's a lot of different ways I can go.
Yeah, I can definitely see Luke Cornett coming back.
Yeah.
I think Svi's gone. I think O'Shea's gone for good reason. Tillman's a question mark, but at that point, we're tinkering. It's just tinkering at the end of the bench.
Yep.
Geez, I guess the one big question I never really got to is, do you think the Celtics give Jayson Tatum the 5-year, $315 million?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, that's probably a big thing.
I mean, he won a championship. Can you get a hometown discount?
I'll be kind of surprised. I wouldn't have been shocked if they did it. Hey, let's sign it on top of the duck boat. Let's do it there. I mean, technically you can't sign anything yet, but it's just a matter of time. I wrote today, it's going to have all the bells and whistles in it. It'll have the 15% trade bonus. It'll have the player option on the end. I would imagine it'll be basically everything he wants. He's going to get. A couple people have asked, is he going to get a no trade clause? The answer is no for two reasons. One is he's not eligible yet. You have to have at least 8 years of service in the NBA to qualify for one. And then the other qualification, which he does meet, is 4 years with the same team. But the bigger thing is you can't get a no trade clause in an extension where you didn't have one in the previous contract. So if Jayson Tatum were to play things out, re-sign on a new contract that next year, he would have 8 years of service. He'd have 4 years with Boston, and then he could get it. But he's not going to want a no trade clause bad enough to not want to just lock in the richest contract in NBA history.
Yeah.
Like that's
Don't worry.
that'll be that's going to be it's funny because I've seen it's just so funny. Celtics fans, I love them to death and I never want them to change. I've already had some people like, should we be worried that he hasn't signed this yet? And I'm like, God, I mean, is anyone sober enough to drop the documents yet?
I mean, geez, yeah.
That's all, it's okay. Like it's fine. He's going to sign that Supermax. I'll tell you, I don't know if you saw this. I tweeted it, but I had a good friend of mine. He was at the parade and he's like, dude, you would have just lost your mind. These two guys next to me were talking about the Alex Caruso trade. And one of the guys goes, we couldn't have beat that offer. What's Brad been doing? Is he celebrating too much? And I was like, never change, Celtics fans. I love it. Like you're literally waiting on a parade to celebrate a championship, and you're complaining about a trade.
That offer. The answer is no.
And exactly.
That's the answer.
No. Yeah.
They do not have the mechanisms to beat that offer. So there you go. There's your answer.
Yeah. To bring it all the way back to what we started with, anybody who thinks this team is making a big trade, tell me which one of the top 6 guys you're okay with losing. That's the only way you can make any kind of reasonable trade. And the answer should be none of them.
That's right.
I get it. Yeah. If it was like, somebody showed up and said, hey, you want Giannis? Like, okay, let's have an actual conversation, but that's not going to happen. So if you're thinking about if you got starry eyes for any of these guys and you're like, I want this guy on the team, it's not happening unless one of the top 6 goes. They just don't have the ability. Smaller trades, yeah, like that was part of why they acquired Jaden Springer. Have a little bit of extra tradable salary where it is, okay, this guy who's on a rookie deal. I think what they may do with him is turn him into another him at the trade deadline, where it is, all right, who else has a couple years left at $4 million or so, and let's just kind of keep kicking that can down the road. But if you want big trades this summer out of the Celtics, I got to know which one of the top 6 you're moving, and the answer should be none of them.
It's not happening. It's not that, and that's the final note of this podcast. The big deals, not happening. Big free agent signings, not happening. The things that we talked about in detail, Hauser, White, those are the 2 biggest contractual things. And Jayson Tatum's going to get the richest contract in NBA history until next summer when someone else gets one.
Luka.
Yeah, right. There you go. There you go. So that's how it goes. But all the other stuff, that's why Brad Stevens can just chill. I was joking. Just get an office in Aruba, set up a Zoom call, just be like, I can watch the games on League Pass. You don't need me there. I'll come back. Just very tan and happy.
I loved him on NBA TV right after the championship, right there. I know you were in the building, so you're running around like a crazy person. And then I'm flipping between all these different streams and stuff. And I've got my iPad up because it's like, oh, Brad's talking over here, but Missoula's talking over here. And guys are just, felt like they were all just wandering around happy and like, oh, you want to talk to me for 5 minutes? Let's go. But they asked him, they're like, so Brad, this is great. Like, you're going to really celebrate tonight. Really, enjoy yourself. And he goes, yeah, we'll enjoy it tonight. But that draft workout tomorrow morning, that should be fun. Like Brad deadpan, and it's like it's funny because there's some truth in it too. And then I think it was Adam Hillsbach reported, he's like, the whole front office is here for this work. Now I can only imagine what those players are walking in, a bunch of 19 and 20-year-old kids coming in to work out for the Celtics, and in rolls the whole front office in the same clothes, champagne soaked t-shirts, probably stink like they were out at a bachelor party.
Pieces
and
of confetti stuck to
their
exactly.
Face. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No. So I can only imagine what that draft workout was like, but yeah, I mean, that's part of it, right? You got to get it's the chase and replace. You got to go, at the end of the bench. So, but yeah, man, it is going to be a refreshingly boring summer for the Celtics transactionally, which is exactly what we want. Like if it starts getting crazy, something went sideways, and we don't want that. Like, let's have it be nice and chill and relax and have a little bit of fun. And like I said, get back to it sooner than anybody else in the entire league.
That draft workout was probably the only workout where the coaches and the front office executives were the one puking,
right?
Instead of the players.
Yeah. And then all they did was walk in.
Oh my God.
A few suicides. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is a mess.
Keith, appreciate you as always. Thanks for hopping on.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to Keith. Hope that fills you in on a lot of the stuff. It's just this new collective bargaining agreement, the second apron stuff. It's very confusing. I'm trying to wrap my head around some stuff, and still there's so much that it's difficult. But I've got you covered here. I'll have Keith back over the summer for sure to kind of like reset things. We'll see what the Celtics do. Again, full draft coverage in tomorrow's show. I'm assuming the Celtics don't do anything in the first round. So I'm just kind of figuring that tomorrow after the second round, after Brad Stevens talks, will be a good time to talk about the draft. We'll do that. Of course, free agency, all that stuff, all that good stuff. What the Celtics do with the guys that could be up for extensions. It's all coming up. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comments section there. And I would love it if you spread the word. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.